not present. Srimati Menka Gandhi, yes. Yes, your first supplementary.
In April 1917, a delegation of experts, engineers, religious people, leaders who became leaders of political movements later, went to the British and they asked for a commitment from the British that the Ganges would never be touched because its free flow was really important to the existence of India. The British, after careful study, gave a commitment that they would never ever dam the Ganges. Ma'am, today there are 193 dam projects slated for the Ganges, of which 53 projects are in Uttarakhand alone, which means one dam every 5 kilometers. 193 projects are on the Alaknanda, Mandakini, Bhagirath. Now, a lot of people have objected, a lot of experts have objected and have said that this is going to dry up the Ganges. And sure enough, in Srinagar, Garhwal, the Ganges has dried. Is it not true that the Prime Minister gave a personal commitment via 2 cabinet ministers to people sitting on hunger strike like Swami Sanand, saying that 4 of the worst projects would be stopped? This commitment was never upheld. The man, instead of being listened to, was taken off by the police and put virtually under house arrest in Ames, where he still is. Is it not true that these dams, barrages, tunnels on the Ganges will totally destroy the natural quality of the river water, and that they are mainly being done to serve contractors' purposes rather than bringing any benefit at all to India? Is it not true that the National Ganges River Basin Authority has met now after 2 years without taking any commitments at all on what they're going to do about these unnecessary dams which will destroy the Ganga? That's the question.
Ma'am, the supplementary which the honourable member has raised, with respect I would say, is quite beyond the scope of the question which has been raised otherwise. The question in fact is quite contrary to what she has now desired and wanted to convey. The question in fact wants to know from the government as to what is the status and what is the government doing about the projects which are incomplete. Here we have, and I don't...
But that doesn't mean I want to finish.
Well, that is not part of the answer. But ma'am, in any case, I would still like to reply, though that doesn't really come under the jurisdiction or the domain of my ministry. But as the honourable member is aware, there is the National Ganga River Basin Authority headed by the Honourable Prime Minister. There are the chief ministers from the concerned states, and I would only like to remind the honourable member, ma'am, that the chief minister from Uttarakhand is vehemently opposed, the earlier chief minister also was vehemently opposed to the projects being abandoned. Nevertheless, ma'am, in view of the commitments which the Prime Minister had given, and in view of what was discussed in the steering committee headed by the Finance Minister, 3 major projects in Uttarakhand have been abandoned, and the area 135 kilometers has been declared as the eco-sensitive zone. This is despite I would say, the opposition from the state of Uttarakhand. But nevertheless, ma'am, there is the importance, that is the question, that is the basic question today, and that is the question before the House as to what balance we strike between. And we are all committed to maintaining and preserving the purity of River Ganga. It has an important role in our lives. It is not only just a river, it also represents our ethos, our culture. There is no denying the fact. But we have to strike a balance between, ma'am, the need of development and ecology. If River Ganga and other rivers were the sustainers of life in the earlier eras, the bygone ages, they still have to be the sustainers of life. I don't know what was the population then, but the population of India today is 120 billion. And ma'am, if India supports 16% of the world's population, but we have only 4% of the fresh water of the world. And therefore, this is for the House, this is for us to discuss as to what balance we strike between the two important aspects.
Your second question, please.
I would like to thank the minister and I would like to ask him, pertaining to this, the Ganga is more important today because we lack fresh water. The more dams they put on it, the more it will dry up. There are 53 dams, as I mentioned, coming up in Uttarakhand. I don't care whether chief ministers of any party want it or don't want it, because the question I asked and clearly stated was, a lot of these dams are just to serve contractors. Now I want to know, has any serious look been taken at all these 53 dams, because they're one every 5 kilometers. Can a river survive them?
Ma'am, again, with utmost respect, I would like to remind the honourable member, ma'am, there is not even an oblique mention of this in the main question. Nevertheless, ma'am, I think
Yes,
what I had said
what
earlier
I think
suffices.
is that it's a very one minute. It's an important subject. Yes, it is a very important subject, and everybody is very touched, in fact, very concerned about the plight of River Ganga. We should have a discussion on this if there is a notice received. But at the moment, since this doesn't come in the scope of this question, I would request that the questions, supplementaries, be within the scope of the question.